Good. Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Amsterdam International Water Week. Our session is titled Water Quality and Species Monitoring, Efficient Water Use and Data-Led Solutions. We are in for a very good session with exciting speakers on the topic. The local time is about 9 o'clock in Amsterdam. Whatever time is at your end, I'm sure you will enjoy this. So we have 3 talks today, and you will have the opportunity to ask questions after each and every speaker. But let me introduce myself first. My name is Dragan Savic, and I'm with KWR Water Research Institute here in the Netherlands. So today, our first speaker is Michiel Zandt. Michiel is, you will see, from the same organization as myself, and his co-author come from different organizations. So, for example, from Groen Agro Control, the Netherlands, and Stichting Control in Food and Flowers, the Netherlands, and Wageningen University. So without further ado, I'll let Michiel introduce the topic and tell us a bit more about water quality.
Thank you very much for your introduction, Dragan. I will start sharing my screen, which you should all be seeing right now.
Yes, we do.
Dragan already shortly introduced myself. I'm also working at KWR Water Research Institute. My name is Michiel Zandt, a difficult last name, I can imagine. And I want to actually talk about a topic that we at KWR have been performing in the last 4 to 5 years and will be also performing in the future with many collaborators that are involved. And the main collaborators on this topic are the Stichting Control in Food and Flowers, Groen Agro Control, and Wageningen University and Research. You also see the collaborators here on the screen. So let me start with a slight broad introduction into horticulture in the Netherlands. So what are we talking about? What is horticulture in the Netherlands? How much businesses are working on it? So we see that in total about 9,000 businesses are active in horticulture in the Netherlands, and they have a huge surface area of about 10,000 hectares of greenhouses. And in these greenhouses we find, for example, vegetables and many fruits, but also flowers and decorative plants. So it's a very diverse system of horticulture in the Netherlands. What we also see that on a national level is changing in the coming years and also on a European scale is that there are becoming stricter regulations. So what we saw in 2018, purification of residual water from removal of crop protection products was needed at company level. One step further, in this year, actually, we needed to have in place a collective purification of residual water. And from 2027 onwards, very ambitiously, we have to close the complete water cycle at company level. So this means actually at a greenhouse level. So if we look in a little bit more detail about how such a system looks like, we can see to the left, there is a source of irrigation water. This can be, for example, rainwater, can also be surface water. This is stored in a big basin, then is shortly treated before it goes into the greenhouse, for example, by reverse osmosis. And also with the example of reverse osmosis, you will also have a side stream of some waste. To that, a concentrated nutrient solution is added. Of course, these plants also need some nutrients to grow. And then it goes into the greenhouse. And then you can see there's a cultivation gutter. At the bottom, you can see 2 examples of plants that are grown on substrate with cultivation water, tomatoes, for example. And then after the water has been used, it goes into a recirculating system. It's disinfected. New nutrients can be added, and it goes back into the cultivation gutter. There's also a side stream. Some drain water is getting out. And as you might remember, 2027, we have to completely close this cycle. So no drain water stream is there anymore, or should be there anymore. So what is actually happening in this system? So if we want to make this completely circular, we have some challenges that we have to face. For example, organic matter is playing a big role. If you're going to recirculate the water more and more, organic matter that's, for example, exudated by the roots is going to accumulate in the system. We know that microbes grow on this, so also microbes get more abundant, and they also play a role in plant performance. If we zoom in a little bit onto the black boxes in the system, at the left top, you can see the first black box, which is made of organic matter. And we know organic matter is very diverse, and organic matter can both have a role in healthy plant performance, but also unhealthy situations for the plants. This organic matter largely controls the microbial population you can see in the middle. And also here, organic matter can steer towards what we call a healthy microbiome or an unhealthy microbiome. And why is this important? Well, this is both important because this steers plant growth, plant performance, and also in the end, of course, food safety. We want to have good crops that are healthy. So we see that there are many black boxes, but actually if we zoom in, so where at the plant does it have an impact? I have put a zoom in around the roots because this is where the water touches the roots, and this is where you can say the magic happens, and we want to revel what this magic is. So around these roots, you see that root exudates are excreted. So the roots are continuously putting organic matter into the system. Microbes can grow on this, and this is not necessarily a bad thing. This is actually a good thing. You have a protective biofilm around these roots. But also plant pathogens can be involved. And this, of course, can give issues to plant performance. And this is something we do not want to have. So we need to understand this system to be able to control it in a healthy and good way. So let's focus a little bit on this microbiology. So what you see here is a very complex graph of different situations that have been tested before. And I don't want you to focus on the details, but I'm going to lead you through a few key examples. So what was tested here in this study was, does organic matter have an effect on the microbiology? And does Fusarium as a pathogen have effect on the microbiology? And what we saw is in the case of Fusarium being added, there was an increase in two groups of microorganisms, being Acinetobacter and Pseudomonas, two very well-known species also to be involved in pathogenicity. Organic matter also seemed to have an effect, but we know too little about the organic matter to really pinpoint what organic matter species are involved. Without Fusarium, for example, we see Pseudomonas getting more important. So indeed, we can see based on the microbial population what is going on, but we need to have way more knowledge on this because this is too little to steer. So how can we measure water quality actually? So what can we do? We can, for example, use physicochemical parameters. We can measure pH, we can measure temperature and conductivity. But although this tells us something about the microbiology, it's not really telling us what is going on and which microbes are there. We have a microbiological parameter which is commonly used, which is the colony forming units or growing microorganisms on plates. This is a very standard method, but takes about 3 days or maybe even more. It's not really convenient for operational monitoring because it takes too long and it's very selective. You don't see the complete microbiology. So what we actually need is rapid methods and integral methods for microbiology that are fast and tell us what's going on. We can also use, for example, ATP to measure cell activity. We can use cell sorting to measure cell quantity, intact versus dead cells. We can use sequencing approaches to unravel the microbial identity, as I just have showed. And we can use quantitative PCR, in which we can also measure microbial abundances. So here is a little focus on what we have done before. So we have looked at colony forming units. We do, however, see that colony forming units do explain the largest variations and effects in water treatment. So they follow the trends that we see going on in the field. But of course, it takes long and it's not a very broad method. Flow cytometry, on the other hand, is very rapid, and it has a very rapid insight into a live-dead screening of microorganisms. However, it's very costly and it requires expertise and experts to run these machines. We also have tested ATP. You can see the graph on the right, and there's a very good correlation between ATP and colony-forming units, for example. It is a very fast method. You can carry it out in the field, but although there's a good correlation, we actually don't know what it actually tells us and about what microbes we are actually looking at with activity. So it might be a good method, but we know too little about it. So what we actually need is these quick answers and quick actions and quick insights. ATP might be promising, but we don't have enough insights about the link with microbiology. So for this, we actually do need these insights in what microbes are there, what is their activity, and what are their dynamics in this very complex ecosystem. We also know that organic matter plays a big role, but what role is that? And I want to shortly focus on that. So back to the organic matter, I've mentioned it does affect the plant rhizosphere, and it does affect the rhizosphere microbiome. So we know that recirculating water contains more organic matter, We also expect drastic effects on the microbiology. So this is important because this microbiome in turn affects plant performance. But this is also a good thing, but because in principle we can use this potentially to steer this microbiome. So to use organic matter to steer for a healthy and good performing microbiome, which in turn promotes plant growth. And this is also something that has been studied widely before. So this is not novel knowledge, but steering with it is something that hasn't been done before. So we know that several plant growth performing root microbes do promote plant growth. So there's a whole list that is given here. So we know microbes that are linked to good plant performance. And we also know that certain types of organic matter are very abundant or very diverse. For example, low molecular weight organic matter, including amino acids, for example, organic acids. They are very diverse, and we don't know what their link is necessarily with microbial growth. High molecular weight compounds like polysugars and proteins are maybe less diverse, but they are very much more abundant. Doesn't always say they play a big role, so we need to unravel this. And what we also want to do in our studies is to start adding these compounds to see what plant performance and microbiology does. So this also has been done slightly before, so we have investigated which organic matter types are very abundant. And we found that phenolic acids, you can see in the middle part, this gray bar, it's popping up in the drain. So phenolic acids are mainly excreted and not so much degraded by the root rhizosphere. So this might be potentially a type of organic matter, a cluster of organic matter that plays a role. So what we actually want to do, and this is also linking to the future work that we want to do and that we're actually going to do, is we want to measure the organic matter profiles in way more detail. Linked to that, we want to map microbial communities and activity. We use for this next generation sequencing, quantitative PCRs, together with the Wageningen University, for example. And we want to screen for microbially relevant parameters. So what parameters can we use to tell something about the microbiology? This we want to link to actually start applying organic matter and to steer the microbiology, and to follow then also the shifts in microbial communities, activity, both rapid and in depth. And the outcomes are, what do we want to have? Is a toolbox for rapid screening and safe water reuse. And we have a PPS proposal that's currently being judged, which is called the thresholds for water quality, where we want to look for these fast parameters. And we want to develop tools to steer plant performance with organic matter. And this was awarded this morning, actually. This is the PPS proposal, organic matter in recirculation water. So this is very nice news. And so these are all the contacts and collaborators. You can also see them at the bottom. And I again want to mention Control on Food and Flowers, Groene Agricontrol, and Wageningen University and Research that are also involved in the current proposals. And I want to thank you for your attention, and I'm open for questions.
Thank you, Michiel. And I would like to invite questions from the audience. And while I'm waiting for those questions, maybe I can ask a question. So is the idea to come up with various fast assessment methodologies that you can then link to what you can prove with much slower methodologies and then use it for the future?
Yes, that's indeed that's the point indeed. That's what we would want to find out. Can we have indeed a fast method with which we can have a very good indication about the microbial diversity, certain types of microorganisms indeed. So we need these slow methods to gain insight, but we hope to actually have fast methods that can do the work as good as the slow methods. But of course, we need to validate that first. So indeed, we first need to do this broad study, but we want to come up with something that's very practical in the field. Yes.
You showed a very interesting slide where you visualized the impact of one particular, was it pathogen or?
Yeah, Fusarium, I think. Yeah.
And thank you for helping me. I'm learning here, so it's very, very interesting. And in my view, I think that visualization is so important because we're talking about very complex system that is kind of both engineered, that's our greenhouse and everything there, and natural, biological. And without all the tools from data analytics, you did modeling, plus that visualization to come up with the understanding of a very complex phenomena. So can you tell us what kind of techniques do you use for the modeling there?
Yeah, so for the microbiology part, so this is mainly what I focus on. So of course I can tell you something about that. So what we actually do is we look at the whole system, the whole greenhouse system. So we look at the inflow water, the purification system, the outflow, the drain, the drip, the root microbiome. And we sample all those points, and we're going to look at the microbial diversity at all those points. And then between those points, we're starting to compare, and we actually look at, okay, this community of microbes, where does it come from? Does it come from the inflow water? Is it actually something that's only present in the root microbiome? Is it present afterwards? In other words, is it unique? Is it coming from upstream? Is it going downstream? Do we get rid of it? Is it a good microbiome? Is it a bad microbiome? Do we want to keep it? So that's all really comparing between the different points. Like, was it there before? Is it there now? Where is it coming from?
And maybe, by the way, I think we have about over 100 attendees, and you're all welcome to pose questions in the chat. So if there are any questions from Michiel, please do so. I don't want to take all the questions, but I'm very intrigued. I mean, for somebody who has moved to the Netherlands, I didn't realize how big and important this business of greenhouse growing in the country is. The second largest exporter of agricultural product in the world is the Netherlands. So this is very important. But the idea of completely recycling the water strikes me as very, very ambitious. How difficult do you think is going to be achieving that goal?
That's a very good point. I think so. The approach now is more towards if we kill it all, and then I'm talking about the microbes, the water should be safe. But actually, in practice, we see that that's not the case. So actually, a healthy microbiome is way safer than no microbiome at all. You can compare it to our guts. If you would get all the microbes out, you wouldn't be healthy. So we really shift towards an understanding that microbes are important and actually key to plant performance. And now we understand that we lack a lot of knowledge about what a healthy microbiome is. So I think with now the coming research in the coming years, understanding what such a healthy microbiome entails, we can really develop such a stable system. And I think it's very possible to actually have a recirculating water system. After all, a lake is also a recirculating water system where something is very stable over the years and well performing. So if we can understand that microbiology is not scary, but actually very important, we'll get there. Yeah. And this is what I see in the field as well.
Great. Thank you very much, Michiel. For the audience, if we get some time at the end, you will have the opportunity to ask questions to all of our speakers today. But now I'd like us to move to the next speaker, who is Funmi Eyeoyibo from Nigeria. I'm really excited because it's nice to have a different perspective, a non-European perspective. Let's see what Funmi can tell us about the work that they've done, which deals with efficient use of water storage in dams in Nigeria. So please, Funmi, you have the floor. Can you need to unmute yourself. Oh, good. Unfortunately, we cannot hear you. It may be something to do with your earphones because they're kind of breaking. I don't know if you're using them.
Funmi, perhaps we can share the screen for you, your presentation, so that takes less of your internet capacity, and then you will only guide us through the slides. And that
good idea.
Probably work better. So Pepijn is now preparing your slides, so that we can take it from there. We can't hear you quite yet, fortunately. Yeah, could you perhaps try to go in and out of the session just to renew your audio and video settings, please?
Yeah, by the way, this worked well just in preparation for the session. So let's see if you can log out and log in, Funmi, and then if it doesn't work, we can go to Thomas and then maybe reorder the session. Yeah, I think.
Is it without?
Unfortunately, you're still the sound is broken, so we cannot understand what you're saying. I suggest that we move to Thomas now and try to get over this technical problem, and then we can deal with it towards the end of the session. So let me introduce our next speaker. That's Thomas Hess. He has dual affiliation with Waternet, which is a water company of Amsterdam here in the Netherlands, and also Utrecht University Faculty of Science. So I'll let Thomas introduce the topic and acknowledge his co-authors.
Thank you, Dragan. Hi, everyone. I am Thomas Hess, and today I will be talking about a framework for designing data-driven sustainability performance management systems, quite a mouthful, at water utilities, as well as such a functioning system. This is, as Dragan mentioned, this is a collaboration between Utrecht University and Waternet, with several other co-authors, which you can see on the bottom left of my slides. Next slide, please. In 2015, the United Nations committed to 17 interlinked sustainable development goals to guide the world towards a more sustainable future. Growing awareness of these goals in politics and society drives organizations to increasingly integrate sustainability considerations into their practices. However, it appears that as of yet, sustainability considerations have not entered the realm of policymakers sufficiently. And the question is as to why. Next slide, please. Literature suggests it's not always for lack of trying that organizations still have a hard time taking sustainability into account. A lack of insight into their sustainability performance may hold organizations back, even if they are making great and ambitious strides to become more sustainable. Next slide, please. A potential solution to the problem I just explained can be found in the overlap of traditional management theory and IT. Ristoff and Scirocco put this solution into words as follows, namely the integration of sustainability dimensions and a performance management system in order to incorporate all sustainability goals into a company's strategy. Next slide, please. Such a system is called a Sustainability Performance Management System, or SPMS for short. Next slide, please. An SPMS provides policymakers, managers, and other stakeholders with insights specific to the sustainability performance of their organization. And they can be used to measure to what extent an organization is reaching its sustainability objectives. SPMSs use data from assets and processes and put these into perspective against sustainability objectives through indicators. In simpler words, because that's still quite a mouthful, they enable the user to see their organization's progress towards becoming more sustainable using data. And SPMSs can be developed separately, or they can be integrated into other existing performance management systems. Next slide, please. Let's shortly zoom in on the technical workings of an SPMS. As a system, it can translate data from assets and processes into sustainability indicators, which we already mentioned. And those are then subsequently used to provide insights into the performance of the organization. This is achieved by putting those indicators directly into perspective with the sustainability objectives of the organization. For example, a goal for the reduction of emissions paired with emission indicators. With such a combination, organizations have a data-driven overview of their progress. And for many indicators, this could be, for example, various visualizations and in near real time. An SPMS can also be used to see whether sustainability goals are being met and enables improvement to that end. Next slide, please. This was deemed a potentially relevant and interesting area of research at Waternet, because as the public body responsible for Amsterdam's entire water cycle, Waternet has been reporting its climate footprint for years now. To this end, the organization is constantly looking for ways to increase strategic oversight in sustainability with IT by reducing the manual work assessing impact and providing real-time visualization of that impact. After some research, we identified an SPMS to be a clear-cut way to achieve this. There was no specific scientific method to design an SPMS yet, so a framework to this end was created, applicable to water utilities and related organizations. Next slide, please. To aid those seeking to design an SPMS, the framework entails 2 tools and 1 method. The first tool is a conceptual model of sustainability in the context of SPMSs. This model can be used to understand related and contextual concepts before the design of the system starts. The second tool is a repository of sustainability indicators, which can be used by those designing an SPMS as an example of how to calculate sustainability of their organization. And at its core, the framework contains an SPMS design method, which can be used by water utilities to structure their SPMS design process from start to finish. This method is especially useful for other organizations looking to design an SPMS without having to research the proper approach to do so. For the purposes of this presentation, I will focus now on the resulting SPMS that came from this framework as a proof of concept. If you have more questions about the framework, please reach out to me afterwards. Next slide, please. The framework was then applied at Waternet to design an SPMS prototype. The design process involved several steps, among which an interactive design workshop with asset managers and sustainability experts. And subsequently, Microsoft Power BI was used to operationalize the working SPMS prototype. The system uses data from Waternet's various systems, processes, and assets to generate sustainability performance indicators, for example, from the geographical information systems in ArcGIS. Multiple drill-down tabs allow the user to explore these measures and underlying data as detailed to a level of detail as is needed. And it is namely very important that the user also has the ability to learn how to improve the sustainability of their organization and not just how sustainable they're doing right now. I will now go over some of the tabs in the system to give you a practical idea of how the SPMS works and how the systems could be beneficial to other water-related organizations. Next slide, please. This is the first overview of the SPMS prototype at Waternet, the strategic scorecard. This is where Waternet's sustainability objectives are put into perspective with sustainability indicators calculated from data. All of the shown objectives, targets, and indicators were selected earlier during the application of the SPMS framework. The overview can be filtered on year basis, after which the values on the overview change accordingly. Some of the values shown are not yet based on complete data, but the prototype is proven able to translate data from Waternet's processes and assets into a tangible sustainability performance overview, meant to give people within Waternet a sense of how their organization is progressing towards their sustainability goals. Next slide, please. This is the strategic scorecard overview on its own does not offer insight into the specific breakdown of the performance measures shown. However, stakeholders clearly indicated a need for such functionality if they want to improve the sustainability of Waternet. For this reason, the dashboard offers several tabs with drill-down functionality, where the data can be refined within a certain sustainability topic. This is the energy-related tab of the system, and it allows users to explore the data and related indicators based on energy and natural gas use and green energy production by using the map on the left or the filters positioned above. Next slide, please. The system also offers multiple other overviews, like the energy-related one. This is a static picture, but the overview, as the overview has multiple tabs, it covers all kinds of relevant sustainability for Waternet. This is the overview of material circularity-related data. For example, on the left, you can see an overview of the materials currently in the ground used for piping. And on the right, you see several of the calculated sustainability indicators relevant to these materials. Asset managers can use this information as an overview of currently used materials and as a way to choose the most appropriate and most sustainable methods in materials, in the future. Next slide, please. And this overview contains all of the emission-related data and indicators based on data and research performed within Waternet to that end. You can, for example, spot emission sources on the left and several indicators on the right. And this tab enables the analysis of emission sources, quantity, and composition. Next slide, please. The SPMS you just saw has the potential to serve as a portal to all kinds of sustainability-related data present in different systems and processes. It could also enable more data-driven asset management, due to the accessibility of sustainability performance data, making it easier to include those factors into consideration. And lastly, it also has the potential to automate certain impact assessment activities, which are very time-consuming, such as gathering appropriate data from various systems and calculating impact based on that data. This frees up time and resources to research ways to improve instead of just the current situation. Using the SPMS framework, other water-related organizations can start working on their own SPMSs as well, increasing their progress to become more sustainable. Next slide, please. I would like to share a vision of the future with you. I feel organizations should maximize the use of their digital tools to automatically measure and manage their sustainability performance based on the data from their processes and assets. This will allow them to focus directly on becoming more sustainable where it matters and reduces the workload and chance for bias with regards to sustainability. The SPMS framework and resulting prototype can be used by other water-related organizations to this end. Next slide, please. Thank you for your attention. If you'd like to know more about the framework and surrounding research for your organization, or just because you're interested, or about the resulting SPMS at Waternet, please contact me through the listed contact information. I would be happy to help and discuss it further. For now, please let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you, Thomas. Very, very interesting piece of work. Let me remind the audience that you can ask questions through the chat in the Q&A there. But let me ask you a quick question, because this is prototype, I understand. And I was wondering, is there any intention of making it publicly accessible one day? Because obviously people of Amsterdam would want to know how sustainable our organization in Amsterdam.
Yeah, of course. I mean, this would essentially be a choice for the executives of Waternet, of course. But as I mentioned, one of the key drivers of this project was sustainability reporting. So yeah, I feel that personally, I feel that that would be a very good way to give everyone living in the area where Waternet produces their water and takes away their waste, to see how that is managed, where it's coming from, and how sustainable that is. Yeah, I feel that's a good idea.
Okay, and while we are waiting for other questions, as far as I understand, you're looking into processes and data from the organization side of things.
Exactly.
I would imagine that the Waternet has a large number of people working for it, and they're traveling to and from Amsterdam. So that also contributes to CO2 emissions, for example. Is that part of the system, or it's just the processes in providing services to the city of Amsterdam?
I would say in the end, such a dashboard should, such an SPMS should cover all kinds of produced emissions in all kinds of scopes and other impacts as well. At the moment, the prototype uses the data produced by assets and processes. So that is data, for example, on energy use, production numbers, materials bought and also disposed of, for example. So at the moment, it does not contain that. But yeah, I would feel in the vision of the future I mentioned, I would feel that an SPMS of your organization should cover all kinds of impacts you make. And I mean, most companies already know a bit about, for example, how many kilometers their people have driven to various places in the name of their organization. So they can calculate this easily and add it to the system. If that would not be very hard to do. Yeah.
And maybe if you can tell us whether you've tried and spoken to any other utilities to see whether there is interest to implement or develop similar system.
I have only spoken to someone at DHV about this shortly, informally, but they were also very interested in it. But as of yet, this is only a collaboration between Waternet and Utrecht University. But yes, the entire point of it being a framework and not a single system is that everyone can use the methods and the tools to create a system for themselves, because these kinds of systems are very dependent on the strategy and the size and all the other kinds of factors of the organization. So they have to build one for themselves as well. And the framework enables that. So I will be advocating a lot for more use of this system, and I will be promoting my framework for that. So that's also why I'm here.
Okay. I've just got an answer from Alex van der Helm, who says that yearly calculations include all aspects of climate footprint, including car kilometers.
The emissions do.
Yeah, but SPMS could not yet contain all those aspects. But I imagine that will be part of the future work. It is interesting that obviously you focused on one organization, and that could be because, you know, environmental and sustainability reporting is becoming a norm in organizations, both commercial and public organizations. So I see this as a huge kind of step forward, and also reminds me a bit of the work that we do at KWR in terms of city blueprint, where we take over 120, I think 130 parameters of water sustainability within a city. And that's an interesting also, you know, framework that is built on very similar kind of grounds. So I think we need to move on. Thank you, Thomas, for the presentation. And if you have any other questions for him, please get in touch with him directly, or if we have any time at the end. So I will try again with Funmi and her presentation. And Funmi, we will be sharing your presentation for you. If you can just try your microphone now so that we can see whether we can go with it, ahead with it. So we can see the start of the presentation, but and Funmi is logged in, but her mic seems to be muted. She's with us. Unfortunately, we cannot hear you. No, we can see you, but we cannot hear you. So what I suggest, in order to give audience an opportunity to kind of see what Funmi is going to present or was going to present, let's go through the presentation. I will try to interpret. I read your abstract. That was all we had. And then if I make any mistakes, you can type in the chat and provide clarification for me. So shall we do that? Let's move on with the slide. So we're looking into, based on the abstract that Funmi has created, we're talking about a significant number of storage dams in Nigeria that are not used most efficiently for the purposes that they've been built. We still cannot hear you, Funmi, I'm afraid. Okay, shall we move to the next one? So you can see a very complex figure of basically how the country has organized control of the dams. So, and the dams are built for power generation or hydropower generation, flood control, irrigation, potable water supply, fishing and recreation. And there are various ministries that are kind of in charge and contributing to the management of river basins and dams. Can we move to the next one? Yeah, please. So I imagine these are lots of locations of dams, and the table shows the capacity and surface areas. So, you know, there are some that are really big, like in the Osum state, at the Erni Reservoir, and so on. Can we move forward, please? So this is what normally dams are built for. They provide water supply for the population, hydro generation, power generation, flood control, and irrigation. Next slide, please. And the problem with not just in Nigeria, but in many countries, is that there is no kind of overall policy how to best utilize the resources that are there, and then kind of overlapping roles of various ministries, departments, and agencies. Yes, to more or less extent in different countries, there is some kind of synergy and integration, but quite a lot of it is kind of disjointed. And I think that's what Funmi wanted to focus on here. Move on, please. So what is happening if we don't manage our dams, our storage reservoirs properly? We get seasonal flooding in the rainy season, like the water is being released from the dams when it shouldn't be, when it's high risk of flooding. Then we obviously don't have enough water to supply to the population for drinking and hygiene. Poor sanitation and hygiene is also a result, or electricity supply energy is not produced or generated, and also that water may not be available for agricultural growth of crops. Next slide, please. Can we have the next slide? Yeah, and then you get flooding that shouldn't have occurred or could have been prevented. And these are the examples from Lagos, one of the most populated cities in Africa and in the world. Next, please. This is quite a damning statement that, paid for turbines and generators have never worked for a single day. Very, very disturbing to hear that. Next one, please. So this is kind of the recommendations from their work, is that some kind of harmonization of policies and regulations within the water sector is absolutely necessary to deliver on its objectives. Huge financial resources have been mobilized to build these dams. obviously there is environmental impact, detrimental environmental impact. And if they are not meeting their demands in various areas, then it's really difficult or sad for a country. Then the ministries, departments, and so on should work together to try and find harmonizing the roles. I think when they talk about water, food, and energy, all of those are kind of at the nexus within those storage facilities, storage dams. The stakeholder engagement and then coordination and collaboration is also needed for this integrated water resources management. Provision of potable water is obviously the primary role, or it should be the priority for the achievement of sustainable development goals. All the others may take high priority, but lower than that, the supply of potable water. Power generation is also very important, and I think they emphasize here sustainability of cottage industries, how that can be explored within the country. Public-private partnership to drive the investment in the sector for better management. The way I understand, they're run by public organizations. Next slide, please. So we are now at the point where questions, and let me just read what Funmi has said, in addition to what I try to interpret from those slides. Is the water is not fully utilized for potable water supply, so there is a lack of potable water and poor unsanitary conditions even in the communities adjoining the dams, which is almost unbelievable. And the COVID-19 pandemic situation has made the situation much, much worse. So that's basically it. Do we have questions for Funmi? And at this point, we're 10 minutes till the end of the session. I would also open the discussion with other speakers. So if you have questions for any of the speakers of today, please do so. So we had 3 presentations, and I'd like to contrast them. We have developed countries like the Netherlands, where kind of almost everything works well. This is the country that is kind of characterized by the water and water expertise. And the presentation from Michiel showed how we could go into details of very specific activity, very important commercial activity, but how we could look into details of microbiology, water quality, trying to improve the situation. And then Thomas was looking more into how both public and commercial organizations can better report on the achievement of sustainable development goals. And then we have a developing nation with lots of resources and also good water resources, but the management of those resources is kind of something that we are lacking, or we are looking for better ways of organizing. It's more about stewardship, isn't it, Funmi? So what can we kind of look into? What can we learn from this? And Funmi has written something here, so I'll read it for you. Oh yeah, she's actually provided the abstract. It's amazing that Nigeria has over 200 dams, and they're built for specific purpose. But obviously, without that overarching management and control that makes it work efficiently and effectively. So if I can ask maybe Michiel to tell us a little bit more how this collaboration came about. It's quite interesting to see various stakeholders involved in your project.
Yes, I can definitely tell a bit about it. So this already started before I started working at KWR. So partially there were already projects going on. And I think based on that, we also, a couple of months ago, we actually sat around the table, a virtual table it was back then, of course. And so we discussed what are the pressing issues in agriculture and what are the pressing issues in especially horticulture and what should we focus on. And actually all three of us, all four of us, all parties involved, so Stichting Control of Flowers, Agro Control, Wageningen University and us, we decided, so we have overlapping expertises, that's for sure, so we can be competitors in the field, so to say. But this is way too big of a topic to solve by yourself, basically. We need to work together to unravel such a complex black box. So we said, guys, what can we do? What do we want to do? What are our expertises? What do we like to work on? What are we good at? And we actually came up with a very ambitious plan, I have to say, in the beginning. So we want to do everything and we want to know everything. And then we started to really talk to people in the field, to agricultural companies, to also Stichting Kennis in Je Kas, basically the overarching organization that looks at where the field is moving and what is needed. To really ask them, okay, what do you need? What are the pressing issues? What are your concerns moving towards a completely circular system? And we saw there was a perfect overlap. So what we can unravel, what our knowledge can do, and what they want to know, there's a perfect overlap. So we actually put this all together, and we came up with a very nice plan to actually work on this in the coming years to actually provide a safe solution to create such a circular system. So by talking to the parties in the field, I think that's the most important thing. Talk to the field, talk to what their issues are, talk to what needs to be done. And then it comes together. Yeah.
Thank you. And Thomas, collecting the data, and you said there is a real-time information coming from the organization. How difficult was to tap into the systems of Waternet to get that real-time information?
Well, it is, of course, very challenging to consolidate data from multiple different systems into one for one purpose. I mean, there are lots of jobs literally just focused on making sure data from multiple systems gets together and provide some meaningful insights. So yeah, it was challenging. But I have to say that the goal of sustainability and the use case of the dashboard really enthused a lot of people. So a lot of milestones were moved to provide me with data, provide us with data to enter into the dashboard and to consolidate together to get sustainability related insights. So of course it is challenging, but at the same time the framework offers a way to measure what kind of data you need, and then you can go look for it within the organization. And the best part of it is once the data has been located, the links have been made to the system, people looking for sustainability data don't have to do it all over again. They can just come to one place to get all relevant data, or at least most of it, from one place, instead of that going back and forth to all different kinds of systems to calculate impact. So it's one time, or it really reduces the workload in looking for data in various systems.
Thank you. Well, one thing strikes me from all three papers and presentations is that we are all looking for ways to understand data. And for example, in Funmi's case, it would be to understand the current inefficiencies of the operation of these dams and not meeting the goals. And Thomas was talking about sustainability goals and how those could be achieved and how the data can be mapped against those. And then Michiel was talking about taking the data to through various water quality assessment processes to be able to understand and better operate greenhouses. So for me, this is the key, that we need to be able to collect the data of sufficient quality so that we can use them in various types of analysis. And again, when I think about Funmi's situation, it would be, I think, superb to have a similar model like Thomas's that will take historical information about performance, how the dams perform in flooding situation, how they produce or don't produce hydropower when it's needed, water supply, irrigation, so that you have data to back up the claims and then see the progress towards the improvement of the situation. And obviously with Michiel, a very similar kind of attitude would be to develop the data, to collect the data so that the circularity can be implemented and then control or at least follow the performance of the circular system. So with that, I thank you all the presenters, first of all, and apologies to Funmi. It wasn't possible to hear from you, but at least we got the idea from those slides and what you provided in the chat. Thank you to everybody who logged into this session and was with us virtually. And please continue joining sessions at the Amsterdam International Water Week throughout this week. And I wish you all the best. Thank you and goodbye.
Thanks a lot, everyone, for joining this first session. Thanks to all the speakers, and especially thank to you, Dragan, for moderating this session. We wish you very interesting other sessions today, and hope you will enjoy. All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Hi, Funmi. Not sure if you can still hear me, but it's unfortunately that the connection dropped out, but we appreciate that you supported us with your extra remarks in the chat, and that you managed to publish the abstract. So no worries on the poor network. It happens to all of us in this digitalizing world. So it's all right. And hopefully the connection will be better for you when following the other sessions for today. All right. Okay, have a good one. Bye bye.